I think I was the one who went to him and said, "So I have this dragon book." And he's like, he said, "I have literally never given this note before, but more sex."
Greetings, Grammar Pelusians. I'm Mignon Fogarty, and I am here with your bonus segment with Mary Robinette Kowal, who we just talked about overcoming barriers to writing in the main segment. If you haven't heard that, go listen to that first because it's fabulous. It'll get you, sitting down and doing the work you actually want to do. But Mary Robinette, you are just this amazing novelist. I've been enjoying I know, really, I have been enjoying your books for at least a decade.
Oh, thank you.
Um, yeah, and so, I don't know, yeah, and I noticed, they have changed over the years.
Mhm.
Do you wanna talk about sort of your evolution from your first book, which was sort of a Regents the first book that I read of yours was sort of a Regency
Yeah, no, that
no
was my first novel, so
was it? Okay, yeah,
yeah.
I read that, and
Oh,
then,
wow.
now yeah, now you're doing, like, this amazing sci-fi and other and then the Lady Astronaut series, so, I'd just love to hear about your the evolution during your career.
Yeah, so I've always loved reading and writing science fiction and fantasy, and when we sold the first book, Shades of Milk and Honey, which is Jane Austen with magic, um, I we had this conversation about if I wanted to write a series and try to solidify that audience, or if I wanted to write something completely different. We decided to do the series approach, um, and but I knew that I didn't wanna be doing Regency forever. So what I did with the Regency books was each book was, the set dressing, the tone of it was, Regency fantasy, but structurally, I shifted genres with each one. So the first one is straight up romance. It's, Jane Austen with magic. The second one is secretly a, military spy novel. The third one is secretly a courtroom thriller. Um, and the fourth one is basically Jane Austen writes Ocean's 11. It's secretly a heist. So I was doing that in order to sort of train my readers that they could expect something different. One of the things that you learn, actually, I learned in puppet theater, was that people want the same but different. And that is also true with writing, the same but different. So in a normal romance structure, you keep the normal romance series, you keep the structure the same, but you switch who the heroine is, like in Bridgerton.
Mhm.
So I kept the same heroine and I switched my structure. So my heroine was the same, the structure was different. So then after that, I did a book called Ghost Talkers, which is World War One. So the same was you're still getting historical. But my different is it's a different era.
Mhm.
And then the Lady Astronaut series, still historical, but my different is now it's science fiction.
Mhm.
One of the things I also have that's always the same so far is a committed couple.
Mhm.
And and then Spareman was me saying, "All right, everybody, it's not historical, but it kind of has a historical vibe because I was playing with the old uh, silver screen legend, the Thin Man movies. So
Oh
it's got
gosh.
that kind of vibe. Um, but happily married couple, small dog, crime in space. So again, trying to do that the same but different. So I was slowly edging into full on science fiction. Um, and now I think I'm at a point where I can just go all over the map. We'll see with the next book that we are shopping.
Yeah, and you keep saying "we." Who is the
Oh,
other part of "we"?
my agent.
And you've had the same agent the whole time?
I have not.
No?
This is actually my third agent. Um,
Oh.
the first agent never submitted anything, and sat on the book for a year. The So my first real agent and I worked together for, I think the first 7 books. Um, and then the direction that my career was going, the things we were interested in, it was clear to me that I needed to switch agents. I still have a lot of fondness for my first agent, so I don't want people to think that that was, like, "Oh, no, scandal." Um, my current agent is Seth Fishman, and we're a very good match. The there's a it's kind of the Jerry Maguire. He completes me. I'm because he is a shark.
Help me help you.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, he's a shark. Oh, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
You kinda want that in an agent.
Yeah. Exactly. I needed someone who was going to go in and say, "No." He uh, I love him because every time he gets an someone gives him, "Here's the amount we'd like to give." He's like, "You're worth more than that." And I'm like, "Thank you."
That's very nice to hear.
Yeah.
I'm actually really curious about, how you work with your agent. Like, I find that people have different kinds of
Mm,
relationships with
mhm.
their agents, and I love hearing about them. So, how who takes the lead? How does it go? I'm
It's
just
very
curious.
Yeah, for us, it's very collaborative, I think, in terms of, thinking about career, so, the thing I love about Seth is that we think about the direction of the career. We think about, like, not just the next book, but, 5 books out. Um, so, basically, I have a running document that I call the giant list of novels I wanna write. And when it's time for a new project, I think about, do I have anything I want to add to that? And then I show it to him and say, help me prioritize. And then he will say, these are the things that will be easiest to market. This one looks like it's the one that is most you, um, which is really the thing that he's looking for. And so we kind of do a little bit of back and forth conversation on that, and then I'll sit down and start working on something. Sometimes it is a piece that is already has a home. Like, when I'm under contract with Tor, my current publisher. Sometimes it's something that, I'm like, funsies. Whoops! I just accidentally wrote a novel. What do we do with it?"
And does he review your manuscripts and give you edits?
He does. He doesn't give me edits. But he gives me an edit letter. So he thinks about, really big picture stuff. So it's a developmental thing. Like,
Mhm.
I've got a book that I just got an edit letter from him, yesterday, and he basically gives me a big picture overview of how he's seeing the book. And then there's, 2 major changes that he's suggesting. Um, One of which is, add some stuff in, and the other is, here's some spots where you can take stuff out to make room for the stuff that you're adding, because it's on the long side. Uh,
Mhm.
and then, uh, and then the bottom part of the letter is, here's how he's thinking about positioning it. Here's where he's thinking about, like, when he's thinking about sending it out, because sometimes we sit on a book for a while because the timing isn't right.
Oh, like,
Um,
why?
well, actually, the book that this one, it's called The Dragon Question. I joke that it's Alfred Hitchcock presents The Dragon Riders of Pern.
Mhm.
Um, and it feels like Hitchcock noir, but it's got dragons occupying the social place that racehorses do. And there's murder, and, but when I wrote it, which was 2017, um, the the lady astronaut book was just we had just sold that, and, so he was interested in sending this out, but where the market was, he thought that it was probably better to position it as a YA. And so I did a revision of that, but when I finished that revision, the Lady Astronaut books had, like, that was when I had just suddenly won all of those awards for them, and he's like, "We should hold this and do more science fiction right now." Um,
Mm.
and then we'll send it out after that, just like 1 or 2 more science fiction books, then we'll send it out. But then meanwhile, the bottom fell out of the YA market, and it just went
Mhm.
weird and sideways. So he's like, "Okay, so we should not do it as YA, but you did do that YA shift. Can you move it back to adult?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can do that." Um, and then as I was working on it, um, Rebecca Yaros and Iron Wing really took off, and he's like, "Hi." And I think I was the one who went to him and said, "So I have this dragon book." And he said, "I have literally never given," this was actually the note in that I just got. He said, "I have literally never given this note before, but more sex." It's got sex scenes. Like, I went in and I had to add those back in. I had to make it steamier after I was making it not YA, but it's that kind of thing. It's like, when is this going to, you know, be in the best position, for my career and for what else is happening out there in the world? So, I have
Mhm.
no idea what's going to happen with this, because I do have to
Yeah.
add in a little bit more sex. Not a whole lot.
I was gonna ask you how long it takes you to write a novel, but hearing the process, it's like you're writing and then you're rewriting and then you're unrewriting.
This one
Like
is weird. This one's a weird one. Most of the time, like the Calculating Stars, um, that was like 6 months.
Yeah,
Um, uh, and most of the time it's about a year.
yeah. Do
Um,
you typically do one at a time, or do you have multiple things going?
I usually have multiple things going, for, like, over the course of the year, but the actual, like, my head is down and I'm writing. I usually only have 1 novel at a time. Again, this is one of those in hindsight, ADHD. I, I was always, like, all of the novels I had written during NaNoWriMo, alas, uh, but the thing that I realized in hindsight was that the reason that worked for me is the same reason that A Life in Theater worked for me, which was that it kind of teed up the 4 things that really drive an ADHD brain. It was, novel, interesting, challenging, and urgent. It's like, "Ooh, new project that's interesting to me. Oh, it's a challenge to see if I can get this done in this short time, and it's I have to do this by the end of the month." So in hindsight, it's like, "Oh, that's why that was working." But basically, um what I like to do, my preferred mode, is to be able to hyper focus on a book. And so I tend to crank out like the first 3/4 of it in about a month.
Mhm,
And then I sit down and I read through what I wrote, see if I was headed the direction that I thought I was headed, make adjustments, and then write that last quarter to third, over about like another 3 months. And there's a lot of prep that goes around that. Um, and then once it gets into kind of the revision stage, that's when I can be working on something else at the same time.
mhm.
So,
Yeah. Well, I could talk to you all night, but we should get to your book recommendations because I know it's late where you are.
uh,
Um, so what I'm looking for is books that you would recommend to a friend. What are some of your favorite books right now?
so I'm going with recent reads, and I'm going with ones that I found comforting in some way. Um,
Mhm,
One of them is it's a very seasonal book, but I don't care, you should read it anyway. It's called O Little Town of Bethlehem by Elizabeth Boyle. Um, it's a portal fantasy, but it's a portal fantasy for adults, and the portal is through time. So basically, this actress on Thanksgiving winds up dropping back in time to this little town called Bethlehem, and Bethlehem is a town of second chances. So
mm,
everybody who's in the town is someone who's also come through this portal. It's kind of that Brigadoon sort of thing.
mhm,
And so it's about finding second chances, and the whole book takes place between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Mm.
and there's just there's so much warmth in it. There's so much of people, all of these different characters coming to understand who they are, how they fit together, um, uh, the shaking up of their own assumptions about themselves. This and talking about how the story that we tell about ourselves can be as damaging as the stories that other people tell about us.
Mhm.
Um, and so it's lovely. It's heartwarming. It's like having a cup of cocoa while you sit by the window and it's snowing and there's a fire and you've got warm socks. I mean, it's just delightful.
Okay, now I wanna just stop talking to you right now and go read that book.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
that sounds wonderful. But what else? What else do you have?
Okay, so the next one is called The Champagne Letters by Eileen Cook. It is not science fiction or fantasy in any way, shape, or form. In this, I kind of want to be a little careful with this one because you start it and it feels like one book, and then it becomes delightfully a different kind of book. Um, it is a divorcee, 50 years old, um, caught her husband cheating, and decides to go to Paris. Like, just, screw this, I'm going to Paris. And this is someone who is like an insurance evaluator, risk management evaluator. And this is very out of character. She's just like, you know what, goes. Um, and when she gets there, she has this. This is like first or second. So this is very early in the book, so this isn't a spoiler. But she's checking into this hotel and has a little bit of a breakdown in the lobby, and they all think that she's a widow.
Mm.
So she's in this situation where people are being really kind to her because of this, and her world does actually feel like the man that she thought she knew was dead. Um, and then some things start happening that are the book becomes delightfully twisty in ways that you are not expecting it to go, that are full spoilers. But it's one of those books that you're like, this is very empowering book. I feel, what just happened? Like, I spent so much time going, oh my, oh, and then this is really empowering. So it's like it's a love letter to Paris. It's an absolute love letter to any postmenopausal woman who is trying to find herself. And it is also not a finding yourself kind of book. It is just deliciously unexpected.
Oh my gosh, I'm very curious now. I have to read that one too. Okay, so give me the 3rd book that's gonna be, on my reading list now.
Okay, so the third one is called Someone You Can Build a Nest In by John Wiswell.
Oh, I've
Um,
heard of
oh
that.
my gosh. It is, it is a book that is one of those that's like, why do we have genres? Why do I have to pick a genre for this? Um, it's technically a horror novel, but if there was a genre called horror cozy, it would be this. The main character is a literal monster.
Mm,
And this is 1500s ish. Um,
yeah, okay.
but it's also a love story. It's also a coming of age story. It's also a murder mystery. It's also an overthrowing of the ruler. It's all of these different things. But really, like, I started recommending this book to people before I had finished it, because what it really is at its core is a book about what it's like to have to pretend to be human, which we all have to do at some point in our lives.
Mhm.
And it's just absolutely, it's so beautiful. Um, it is. John is a brilliant short story writer and is bringing all of those skills to bear on the way he's delivering scenes, on the nuance of the character relationships. It's also funny. as
Yeah.
well. It's like it's so, um it's so hard to describe this book, but it's something that I think everyone should read, especially people who are neurodivergent. It's like you will feel so seen when you read this book.
That's amazing. I remember now why it's familiar to me because I follow him on social media and he seems great.
He
And
is great.
I went and I looked because I was like, "Oh, I should read his books because he seems so wonderful." And then but I don't read horror. I never read horror.
I don't
So,
I don't either, and this is fine.
yeah, okay, that's great. Then
Yeah,
I
yeah.
will read it. That's wonderful. Good. Well, Mary Robinette, thank you so much, for the Grammar Pelusians who are here and maybe didn't hear the main show yet. Where can people find you?
The easiest thing is to check out my website, maryrobinettekowal.com, and sign up for my newsletter. It will tell you all of the things about where I am, what I'm doing, when the next book comes out, March 18th. And and you get occasional pictures of my really cute cat.
Yeah, and check out her Patreon and the Writing Excuses podcast, and, oh, heck, just follow her on social media too. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was delightful. I could talk to you all evening.
I hope you enjoyed that. I did end up reading Someone You Can Build a Nest In by John Wiswell, and I absolutely loved it. As I was reading it, I thought, "This should win awards," and then it was nominated for a Hugo Award, so, yeah, I absolutely recommend it. And Mary Robinette's new book that came out in March, which strangely we didn't name in the interview, is called The Martian Contingency, and I haven't read it yet, but I'm sure I will because I love all her books. Also, if you missed it, the longer interview I did with Mary Robinette back in February about overcoming barriers to writing was filled with great practical advice to get you back on track when it feels like there's so much going on and you just can't even concentrate. That was episode 1058 back in February. And you can find that wherever you listen to podcasts. Finally, thank you to all the Grammar Pelusians who support the show. You are the best. That's all. Thanks for listening.